We're joined right now by the governor of the state of Wisconsin, Scott Walker. Scott, good afternoon.
Hey, Mark. Good to be with you.
You just came on the line, but in my opening comments here, I've suggested that the failure of the Democrats to retake the state Senate means that they have now tried everything, and your reforms remain standing, they're law, and there really isn't a significant threat to them. They are here, if not to stay, they're here to stay for some time to come, and we're going to find out whether or not they continue to work as well as they have. Do you believe that this was their last gasp at trying to build momentum to try to kill what you've been trying to accomplish?
Oh, I think you're probably still going to have a core group that probably tries a recall against me coming into this next year as well, just because you've got a core group that no matter what happens is going to try and attract. But I think in the end, the voters have had it with all the attacks. They've had it with just kind of a seamlessly endless campaign. And I think I've said all along, every day, every week, and every month that goes by, that these reforms have more time to settle in. The voters are going to see, just as we saw literally, as you talked about the other day, even the city of Milwaukee, it's now been proven that despite what city leaders said just a few months ago, the city of Milwaukee has a net benefit of $11 million because of these reforms. Whether it's them, whether it's Kaukauna School District, where they're adding more teachers, lowering classroom size, being able to finally pay per merit, whether it's Wauwatosa, where my kids go to school, where the school board members said schools are going to be the same and there's going to be new things for them. Every day that goes by that people get to see the reforms more fully into effect, they'll realize why we're doing this and why it is a stark contrast to the abysmal failure out in Washington, where they got a downgrade because they failed to take on the tough decisions, and the public and the country is paying for it.
My point is that I don't see any scenario for them to be able to roll back the clock anymore. You're right. They may try to recall you next year. Everyone now knows this is going nowhere. The cooler heads in the Democratic Party won't back it financially because they know that it would simply give you another victory. The great irony is that I think by throwing everything at you with these protests, with the Democratic senators leaving the state, with them trying to make then a state Supreme Court election, a referendum on this, and now attempting to throw out Republican state senators who voted for this, by doing all of this stuff and by the Republicans and your side winning every one of them, I think essentially the word is out nationally that what Scott Walker has done in Wisconsin is being reaffirmed by the voters. Had they not tried all of this, they could perhaps claim that there's this massive groundswell of opposition, but we've seen it tested again and again and again and again and again, and there isn't a crack there.
Right. You look at this and you figure $30 million, $20 million alone from the unions out there. I mean, we had a great effort. In the end, the grassroots organization, the state party, Brad Courtney, Reince Priebus on the national level, all those folks coming in, but still financially no match for what the national special interests were throwing here. And yet, in the end, the voters, they sorted through all the fiction. They found out what the real facts were here. They looked at what was actually happening and realized it's working. We're putting more people to work in the state. Our job growth in the first 6 months, 39,000, double the national rate. They're seeing that the reforms work. And I ultimately said, I have faith in the voters. If you give them the facts, I believe they're going to step up. The other nice thing for us long term, because jobs are we're still going to have to compete for more jobs, because the failure of the White House and the Congress to get things done and to get government out of the way of business means we're going to have to work even harder to put people to work in this state. The great thing is now, because of all this, we're going to have, maybe not every Democrat, but we're going to have reasonable Democrats like Tim Cullen and others stepping up to work with us, and even more things that can help put the people of the state to work.
Now that the Act 10, the budget, the changes in bargaining and so on, now that they are law and you're not going to be recalled, meaning whatever happens with the legislature next year, you can veto any attempts by them to water down or change them. These are going to be here for several years. Does the effort now move toward taking advantage of this better landscape and trying to improve the state's economy? In other words, have you gotten all the legislation that you need to fix state finances, at least for the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think we're in exceptional shape. I mean, it's why Moody's, normally you and I and a handful of people would care about bond rating agencies, but after last week, I think it's when the federal government's bond rating was downgraded, I think it's pretty imperative that we pay attention. In our case, Moody's called one of those bond rating agencies, called our budget credit positive. because they understood more. You know, it wasn't like we've had in the past where there was a short-term fix where they deferred the problems. No, we actually run the gamut. We went through and took a $3.6 billion deficit, turned into a $300 million surplus, paid off the money rated from the patient compensation fund, restored the transportation fund so that we can drive economic development, even made our payment to the state of Minnesota that Doyle failed to make last year. We have done all the things that are structurally sound. We haven't, you know, even in the past, sometimes Republicans pushed things off and did things in a way that was dangerous. We've taken care of those things. We took a lot of hits.
You've just rattled all of it off, Scott, because you know it.
Yeah.
But have you sought? I know this has been the most hectic 8 months of your life, probably even more so than like when you were getting married and all of that stuff. Have you sat back and thought about what has been accomplished by yourself in the Republican legislature?
No,
has it really sunk in that you've transformed a fiscally reckless state into perhaps the most fiscally sound state in the nation?
Yeah, I mean that. You know, of late, the main time
has it sunk in? I guess I'm saying is, do you realize what's been accomplished?
It hasn't, because we've been so busy doing it. But you're right. I mean, great contrast. Think about this: our neighbors to the south, Illinois. Well, we went up 17 spots in terms of the best states to do business in. The state of Illinois has dropped 40 in the last 5 years. While our bond rating was affirmed, they're talking about, you know, junk bonds down there, and not even their treasurers and comptrollers even talking about not even recommending that because their bond rating is so horrible. Well, we've got a fully funded pension system. There's only half funded. I mean, an issue. We gained 9,500 net new jobs in June. They lost 7,200. It is a tale of two different states. They raised taxes on businesses by nearly 50%, and an individual income tax by about 2/3. We lowered the tax burden for job creators so that they could put more people to work in this state. On every single issue, there is a night and day contrast either between Illinois or the federal government, and in the end, we're going to show the people of our state, the people of our region, and most importantly, the people of the country, that we got our act together in Wisconsin, and it's working again.
If the national economy heads into double dip, recession, or worse, it means the projections of state tax revenue that you have might fall short, and you might need to make further adjustments during the fiscal year. You're in essence, you are dependent upon the economy that Barack Obama is mismanaging in a weird way, and this must drive Democrats crazy, and it's probably a little weird for Republicans too. It's going to be a lot easier for you to achieve our goals in Wisconsin if the national economy improves. Your fortunes, in a way, are linked to President Obama, and I doubt that you have much faith in the way he's running things. If revenues decline significantly, have you considered the fact that you might not make your budget numbers and there might have to be more adjustments?
Well, we'd be prepared. Just as you know, for 8 years I was prepared as the county executive, and just as I came in, and we inherited a deficit as well for the remainder of the first 6 months of this year, which was still under Governor Doyle's budget. We made changes there. My hope is, and we have made this is a very fiscally conservative in terms of estimates budget, and because we didn't push things off, we didn't defer payments, we didn't raid other funds, it puts us in great shape. But it does show. You know, somebody asked me earlier today about, you know, Wall Street and the market, and I said, well, Wall Street's obviously of interest to me. I'm worried less about Wall Street than I am about Main Street and about your street and the street of everybody else in the state of Wisconsin. I still believe fundamentally we have to aggressively move beyond where the federal economy is or the national economy is and do things in this state. And I believe, you know, there's a lot of things that discerning Democrats will want to help us out with that can show that Wisconsin is head and shoulders above the rest.
Like what? Are you talking about legislation?
Yeah, I mean, I look at a good example. We look at one of the great things we need to have more companies growing in the state of Wisconsin is more ways to encourage venture capital. Now, that doesn't mean, I mean, there's whole new ways we can do that in a way that doesn't have more government money on the table, but makes it easier for investors.
You're saying, though, you do have a legislative agenda for the next year that might be part of job attraction and so on?
Oh, you go down the list.
So, in other words, all the bills that you needed to pass aren't passed yet.
Well, right. There are other things we could do that could build. Even we talked earlier this year about mining and the incredible prospect of northwestern Wisconsin, but also balancing it out with the need to make sure that all the needs of local governments, all the needs of legitimate, reasonable conservation groups are met up there. That's a good example, one where a guy like Bob Jalka, state senator from the Northwest, he shares the same interest up there. He doesn't want to walk away from 1,000 jobs, but at the same time, he's got some certain